feeling the show because there's always so many things happening. But we do want it to be more than just a bulletin board, you know. So things like you are really important. It's going to affect them. Also things that aren't already covered on the show. Because Matt and Nick kind of fill out change your stuff and things like that. Stuff. Might be sort of person. What's happening on the visually? Like if there's a cool story, let's talk about that. Like on Echo Lake stuff, there's a you know, we're trying to the 10th of November be helpful and not just more forward. Yeah, I asked Jonathan. Oh yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we always want the time, but I know. And the ads take up how much do they take up? Well, it's only 40 minutes of the show of an hour. Okay, so 20 minutes of it is updates and yeah, the news and that kind of thing, half hour. So, you know, I asked Ryan, I'm like, you know, it's almost because we're here, we get all the work done for the show. We should give it that. He's like, oh, I don't know. Really? Like you're gonna, I mean, right now all you're doing is going to lunch now. Yeah. But Meryl supports me. It's really trying to talk Matt into different. Ryan, I don't know. Yeah, you love it. But yeah, always if you have ideas, okay, you want to talk about, let us know.
I would like to call the October 23rd, 2024 City Council regular meeting to order. Will everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Carey.
Present.
Chilson.
Present.
Hutchings. Nelson.
Present.
Parker.
Yes, I'm here.
Wackler.
Ms. Wackler has an excused absence.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve? Mr. Carey.
Mr. Mayor, I move the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda as presented to us.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. Are there any changes to the agenda or consent agenda? Would the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Approval of minutes, October 9, 2024 council meeting minutes. Resolution 2024-035, confirming the mayor's reappointment of Councilmember Lisa Parker to the position of vice mayor, introduced by the mayor. Resolution 2024-036, honoring Dr. Alexander B. Russell Jr. for his lifelong commitment to healthcare, service to the Kenai Peninsula, and recognition as the 2024 Patton Award recipient, introduced by Vice Mayor Parker. Resolution 2024-037, approving the Special Assessment District's use of city funds policy, introduced by Vice Mayor Parker. And that is your consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on any of the items just read by the clerk? Anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on any of those items? Seeing none, we'll take a look at the Zoom. And I see no hands raised there. Are there any council objections, or having no one wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda is back before the council? Are there any objections, council objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, the agenda and consent agenda are approved by unanimous consent. Next item on the agenda is a proclamation I'm going to read here. Make sure I got the right one. Oh, here we have a proclamation, whereas Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia, is a progressive and degenerative brain disorder that causes memory loss and affects self-care, decision-making, and behavior. And whereas 8,400 Alaskans are currently living with Alzheimer's disease, supported by 25,000 unpaid caregivers, who provide 39 million hours of care annually, valued at $796 million. And whereas dementia is a leading cause of death in Alaska, and the only leading cause of death in the country, with no known treatments to prevent, cure, or even delay the onset or slow the progression of the disease. And whereas with early detection and diagnosis, individuals and families can gain access to medications and support services which promote quality of life, fully participate in planning for the future, and enroll in critical research trials. Whereas the city of Soldotna recognizes the Alzheimer's Association for promoting awareness and providing care and support, improving the quality of life for those living with dementia and their caregivers. And whereas November is National Family Caregiver Month, a time to honor caregivers across Alaska and the U.S., raise awareness and strengthen support for their essential role. And whereas it is crucial to recognize the stories, resilience, and dedication of those affected by dementia, including the ongoing efforts of research seeking a cure. And whereas I urge all residents to support caregivers in our community by volunteering with organizations like the Alzheimer's Association. Every effort, from helping with daily tasks to providing respite care, can make a significant difference. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Paul Whitney, do hereby proclaim November 2024 in the city of Soldotna as National Caregiver Month. Thank you for
Thank
all
you,
you're doing.
sir. Again, I appreciate everything you do. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Can you guys turn around, Maddie? When you take
Oh.
a picture?
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
next item on the agenda is number 4, presentation with prior notice. In the Visitor Center Quarterly Report, Maddie Olson, Executive Director, Soldotna Chamber of Commerce, and her partner.
Yes, thank you for having me. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it today. I'm down to the last 2 weeks. So we'll see while I'm out. We have an incredible team at the chamber that will be filling in for me, but I will not be gone, just remote for a little bit. So this is our third quarter report. Pretty much what we anticipated. We had a great summer. Actually, we saw 2,000 more visitors than we did last year. Bringing our total visitors in the visitor center to just over 25,000. And that puts us back in line with pre-COVID numbers. So looking back at 2018 and prior, now we are starting to see those numbers return. So that's very exciting news. Additionally, the second quarter sales tax for Soldotna showed a 3.7% increase over 2023. Gross sales saw a slight decrease of 0.6%, but overall that outlook is strong, and by my next report, the third quarter numbers should be available as well. Let's see. Looking ahead into the fourth quarter, we're preparing for several signature events, including our Spark Soldotna, Christmas in the Park, and our annual awards ceremony. We're also planning for 2025 with a focus on creating a strong marketing strategy to better promote Soldotna, not only as a top destination, but as a place to live as well. As always, we're committed to exploring new and exciting ways to be supporting and strengthening our local business community as well. So as always, I just want to give a huge thank you to the city of Soldotna and our partnership. We really couldn't do what we do without you and your support. Looking at the visitor center and marketing, like I mentioned, we saw over 25,000 visitors through May through September. We had this year, we are working on our 2025 visitor guide, and we had 45 entries for our photography contest, a little bit less than half of what we saw last year, but we still got some great photos in. We began the ad sales for the 2025 guide in August, and we're wrapping up all of our content and photography right now. And a huge goal for this upcoming visitor guide is, like I said, to better promote Soldotna as a place to eat, stay, and play, as well as a place to live. So we're taking it from more of a magazine feel to a true guide feel, and we're really excited to be launching that in February. Also, with the help of a data analysis program generously provided by CAPED, in a partnership with them, we will better understand our visitors, where they're coming from, and a target audience going forward. So that's really exciting as well. Our social media for Visit Soldotna continues to grow. It was a little bit slower pace over the third quarter with just a 1.5% increase. And then we saw 0.2 and 0.8% increase in our other social media pages. Let's see, our website continues to grow and stay strong. We're working really hard with our web designer to continue optimizing our SEO and making sure that we are at the top when people are looking for places to visit while they are here staying in Alaska. Moving on to our events and what we have coming up. We have our Spark Soldotna event, and that will be held Saturday, November 9th at 5:30 p.m. at Lone Moose Lodge. We had a total of 6 applicants this year, and we will be narrowing that down to 3 or 4 finalists. And we're excited to announce this year's Spark Sharks. They will be Eric Watkins with Echo Lake Meats, Mel Allen with Mel's Cafe, Sarah Erickson with Alaskans, and Kelly Brewer with Alaska West Air. So we have a strong judging panel, and we're excited to have them on board. This event provides a $4,000 business grant to one of our finalists. And it's for business development. So whether a business is in the conceptual idea or they're established, we welcome applicants, and it's really fun to see just the variety of applicants that come through. So while the application period is closed for this year, tickets are available to attend. And this year we are also incorporating a People's Choice Award, which encourages audience participation, and one of the finalists will receive an additional award for that. So if you'd like to purchase tickets, you can. It's a catered dinner, and you get to listen to these finalists pitch their ideas to our local Spark Sharks. Also coming up, we have Christmas in the Park. This is an annual event that will be held Saturday, December 7th this year, beginning at 3 p.m. We will have live nativity, carolers, of course, Santa, cookies, hot cocoa. The community really comes together to make this a special event, and we will conclude the evening with fireworks. And also we have our annual awards celebration coming up. So we're taking nominations through November 14th for that. We have an incredible community between just community members and businesses. So we have about 10 or 11 award categories. If you have anybody in mind that you would like to nominate, like I said, nominations are open through November 14th. And then on December 18th, we will be celebrating those individuals and businesses. With that, I'd like to highlight Small Business Saturday that's coming up. And that falls on November 30th this year. So it's really a valuable opportunity to support local businesses that truly are the backbone of our community. As we know, every dollar spent really cycles through our community and helps everyone. That return on investment is huge. So this annual event reminds us that small businesses are essential to maintaining the vitality of Soldotna. Down below at the end of my report, you can see our third quarter expenses. And I think that's all I have for my report. Does anybody have questions?
Any questions from the council? Oh, go ahead, Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Thank you, Maddie, for the report. I wasn't here, but kind of brief recap on pie auction.
Yes, absolutely. So we did just last weekend, we had our pie auction. We raised 41.5 thousand, which hits our year over year goal. So very excited about that. It's our only fundraiser of the year. So it was a huge success and the community really comes together. It's a heavy season for fundraising. So we're just very grateful to everybody who did take the time to volunteer their services, items, desserts. It was a really incredible night. We had a Into the Time Machine theme and a lot of it leaned towards Back to the Future feel. So it was a lot of fun for people.
I did have a question on the increase in the visitors this year. Was there a breakdown of, were they in-state visitors or out-of-state visitors?
So I will have that information in next quarter's report. Like I said, we're working closely with CAPED. They have invested in this data analysis program called Datafy. And while I was really hoping to have a report from that for this quarter, a lot of questions came up as we started digging into this data. So I'll have a better and more comprehensive report on that for the fourth quarter.
Okay, thank you very much for the report.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think next time I see you guys will be in January. And I should be able to make that one. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
Okay, take care.
Thanks.
Have a great holiday and congratulations.
Thanks.
Moving along to the next item on the agenda is public comments and presentations. Items other than those appearing on the agenda, 3 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes aggregate. Are there any members from the public who would like to speak on any item not on the agenda, appearing on the agenda? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sarah Erickson, and I live down Mackey Lake Road, 33768 Grayling Court, down East Mackey. Anyway, I own Alaskans, and I also am a co-host on Life on the Kenai on KSRM radio show with Ryan Kapp, who you might know. And so one day a week, 1 hour a week, we talk about all the new things happening on the peninsula, mainly Kenai Soldotna area, Sterling, this area covered by KSRM. But, so when a new building is going up or something, that's something we talk about on the radio. And I saw it going up as I was going to Alaskans, and I was like, oh, what is this? And was told that it was a pot shop. And I was like, really? We have all these dreams for Soldotna, the redevelopment. We have all these tourists. And even this summer, I had people come into my store and go, man, you guys have a lot of marijuana stores. And again, I'd kind of joke with them about that. But, in reality, Maddie's doing a really great job of trying to promote Soldotna as a place to live and play and really be a great community to be part of. But yet what we present is kind of just 8,000 coffee shops and marijuana shops and churches. And I mean, it's just kind of, we want this livable feel and we want this really cool feel. And I think we have a lot of cool people here, but it just on paper, it doesn't seem to work out. So I called Linda with the planning and zoning and just said, what is the law as far as how many retail shops we give for marijuana? I would love to be able to sell beer and wine in Alaskans. I mean, all the fishermen come out and say, "Do you sell beer?" I'm like, "No," because the licensing is so strict. But for marijuana, it doesn't seem to be that way for a retail store. Um, and so I just was thinking, how can we kind of rein that in? So it's not like Soldotna is just this one kind of weird place, hippie. I mean, it's not like I didn't want to talk like it's a negative thing, but you know what I mean? I mean, you kind of get where I'm coming from because we're all excited about the Soldotna redevelopment progress or idea of it. And that seems like a long shot. So I thought, oh, a new building. And it's just as like, this is not the direction we were hoping for. And um, so I'm just really here because Ryan and I will talk about it on the radio and we talk about everything. And it's just not exciting to say, oh, another pot shop's going in because we need that, So I didn't know if you have a policy or maybe Linda can explain how that is set or whatever, or if that's something you can revisit and just say, let's limit, at least just have a strategic plan of what we want Soldotna to look like. Yes, we give, retail licenses out for whoever, but can we limit to a certain category maybe? That's kind of all I wanted to say.
Any questions from the council? I would ask, how many do we have in town right now? I believe it's 3,
So this will be 4?
and with a new one would be 4.
Yeah.
Licensing is handled by the state, not by the city.
Sure, right.
And I think when we originally looked at the marijuana issue, there, what's been 5 years now or something like that, there wasn't any motion made or anything to limit how many would be allowed inside the city limits. And it hasn't, this is the first time it's come up, and this first time I was aware that another store was going in.
Yeah.
So that may be something the council wants to consider again.
Yeah.
If you want to limit how many are inside within the city limits.
Yeah. Just for, anyway, there's a lot of reasons for it not to be there, but if I had just one other thing, if I probably already done my 3 minutes, but it's just really, really quick.
Okay.
So the field house, that's going up. Is there a connection between the field house and the sports center? Like, will there be so Ryan and I were talking about, we'd really love to sponsor this thing where we could build an overpass from the field house to the sports center where you could drive under and park in the back if you wanted to. And then we could have oh gosh, what is it? Ryan, it's that game that everyone throws the sandbags. What, cornhole? Yeah, Ryan wants to do cornhole in that little hallway. So we thought we could do a fun fundraiser on Life on the Kenai and try to raise money for it. And I thought, is it too late to kind of build a doorway for a future connection? It's crazy. I know. It was just a thought.
There is plans, there originally were plans for a connector there. It was going to be like a pre-convention area. Due to the cost estimate, we had to cut that out.
Yeah.
So that is something that is still being looked at for the future.
Because if you could just build a door, just, for future, and then we could, raise money for that, like a fun little thing to do for us a lot. But anyway, that's all I got.
Okay, any council comments? Go ahead, Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for coming. And with respect to the cannabis operations, because we don't have a big footprint here within
Right.
the city, and the state does have limitations on and setbacks, and we have a lot of schools here. It would be up to Linda and her crew to be able to determine, are there other areas in the city where potentially somebody might license? But we do have limited property here
Yep.
in the city for that. And there are outside the city limits, even more cannabis, but those aren't in the city
Right.
limits.
It's just as they're coming into Soldotna, they pass all those and they keep going through Soldotna and they see more and they're like, wow, you guys are really into this. It's that and car shops and coffee shops, it's like, how many of these can we have? There just seems to be like, we could go, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to save this spot for a cute little something and then this for something else instead of saying, oh yeah, I guess you were the first one to apply. So you get to build another car quest or whatever, Napa Auto Parts. It's just, it just seems like we could be more strategic.
Right. And if I might follow up
Go ahead.
with respect to the field house, We are very fortunate in that we have the Soldotna Regional Sports Complex. We will have the ice arena. We will have the field house. We have baseball fields. We have rodeo grounds, and those are all connected. And this is something that will continue to evolve from the city standpoint, that we will continue to make improvements. It's not, a one and done. It's
Sure.
something where we will continue
Yeah.
to build on that and bring those together and make it easier for people to get around. But it is, we call it Soldotna Regional Sports Complex. And when you look at the activities that we will be having there, it is a sports complex.
We're excited about it.
Yeah.
Super. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? And please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Stephanie Queen, Crow's Nest Court, Soldotna. Nice to see you, Vice Mayor Parker and council members and City Manager Bauer. I'm here for my role as the public involvement lead for the Sterling Highway Safety Corridor project. That's the highway redesign and reconstruction between Sterling and Soldotna. And wanted to give you a quick update since our team was last here in June. Steve Noble, the design manager, presented and let you know what we're doing, as well as invite you to the open house and invite the public to the open house that it's going on tomorrow night at the Soldotna Regional Sports Complex in the conference rooms there. You might remember this project has two main objectives. One is to address the really high number of serious and fatal injuries that occur within this stretch of highway, so that the safety corridor designation can be decommissioned and removed. And then the other objective is to deal with the congestion that this two-lane highway has seen since the growth in our community and surrounding communities over the last many, many decades. We're in the design engineering phase, and that means the team is out right now collecting data. There's surveyors out within the corridor, hydrologists are out there looking at Soldotna Creek, geotechnical folks are doing borings. We're going to focus on the creek area where there might be something like a bridge structure when that culvert is replaced. They're focusing on that little whoop-de-doo right in front of the Harley shop where there's been some settling. That's not the technical term. The engineers on the project are cringing. But they're gathering that data as well as traffic and safety updated data. And we've got a lot of that to be able to present to the public tomorrow night at the open house. We've got boards on more specific crash information than we had in June. One of the boards really shows where these crashes are clustered, and it might be no surprise to folks who are familiar with this highway. There are a lot of them between Fred Meyers and Mackey Lake. There are a lot of crashes right at Whistle Hill, a lot clustered right before Mackey Lake. So that's one area that it's going to be a real challenge for our team to come up with a design that meets the safety objectives of the project while also maintaining access for driveways and businesses along the corridor, which is something that we've heard loud and clear from the public is a critical need of the communities to make sure that access is maintained. We're going to present back a summary of what we've heard so far. So there's some areas of the project where there seems to be alignment and general support from the community, a lot of other areas where there's maybe differing opinions. And so we'll present that back, as well as we've got long roll plots that show aerial imagery of the entire corridor with different highway design and intersection design alternatives. So for example, you'll be able to zoom in and look at that section of highway in front of Linden Transport, and the map will show 3 or 4 different configurations of what that highway could look like, how that access could be provided. And so there's not a recommended design at this point. We're still gathering information and feedback from the public as well as performing those analyses. But it's a really good time for the public to come in and share additional information, weigh in on those different elements of the project that are being considered. The design engineering phase will run through next winter. And the STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Plan, right now has about 70 million of construction funding earmarked for FY26, which would be available starting next October. If that timeline doesn't change, we would therefore not expect significant construction activities until the spring of 2026 at the earliest. But that's a good amount of time for the design team to continue to work through this design process, get a lot of feedback from the community. And our goal is to come back at a third round of open houses in the spring and present some recommendations. So we hope everyone can make it tomorrow night. It's between 4 and 7 p.m. at the Sports Center conference rooms. There will be a pre-recorded presentation. It's about 15 minutes long. It's going to play every half hour. So we'll have one room where the presentation's going on and we'll have project team members who can answer questions afterwards. And then the other room will have staff from our team from DOT, the design firm Dowell, myself, and QAP, the contractors. And they will be manning these different boards and stations and being available to answer questions and collect feedback. So hope you can join us and the public as well tomorrow night between 4 and 7. You don't have to be there right at 4 and you don't have to stay the whole time. Hopefully folks can find a time when it's convenient to stop by. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very good to see you.
Thank you.
What an expert they have working on this. I'm just wondering, when you take in all this data, again, it's a very large area, a very complex thing, and you get very different ideas. I really liked what you mentioned about Lynn in terms of 4 or 5, again, multiple options. How will you decide which option to go with? I'm going to assume that finances is part of it, but how do you factor in the public intake on what they want?
That's an excellent question. And I can't answer it, but I can tell you just that I think all of those things are considerations. So the stated objective of the project is really focused on safety, particularly those head-on collisions. So I think that the state of Alaska is going to continue to press our team to provide solutions that deal with that. And then what our team is trying to do is then come up with solutions that address the other concerns about access, convenience, particularly for the neighborhoods and the businesses that are on that corridor. But as you mentioned, cost is going to be another consideration. We've got some information. There's some boards we've prepared that are kind of pros and cons of these 2 main highway designs that are being considered, the 5-lane with the center turn lane or the 4-lane divided. We've got some boards that are pros and cons. And at this point, we're just trying to share back factual information about each of them so that people can just be armed with good information when they give us that feedback. But I think that all of those things are going to come into play. And that's the really, really challenging work that's ahead of us over the winter before coming back with a recommendation. And I can't give you maybe more specific other than all of the things will be considered. We'll present a recommendation. We'll get more feedback from the public, and then ultimately we'll be looking for the state of Alaska to concur with those design choices.
Go ahead, Mr. Carey.
Do you anticipate that there'll be a need to buy more land?
Thank you. Excellent question. That's a question we've received a lot. The technical answer is that at this point, we don't yet know. We don't have enough information whether there will be specific impacts and additional right-of-way needed. But to provide more context, I can tell you that the state anticipated going to 4 lanes as early as the 80s. And so they had already gone through and acquired much of the right-of-way that would be needed. So our team believes that most properties will not be impacted. The right-of-way width, it varies from 180 up to 220 plus right now. That's sufficient width to fit most of these designs we're considering. But the unknowns are things like frontage roads, if those are going to be implemented in any pieces of this corridor, where is a 5-lane versus a 4-lane divided. So we can't say for certain that there won't be some properties impacted. We'll know more next spring. But given that the state had already gone through and purchased much of that, we feel confident saying, letting people know that most properties, we don't anticipate they will be impacted at all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Thank you, Stephanie, for coming and giving us an update. You mentioned that 70 million is in the next federal fiscal year budget for this project. My recollection is this project cost more than 70 million, so we currently don't have enough money budgeted for the project. Is that right?
Thank you. That's my understanding as well, is that additional funding would be needed in subsequent construction years. So the project team would have the ability to phase the project, and it's possible that one portion of the corridor could be constructed first. But I think that your understanding of that is likely correct. Yeah.
Any other questions from the council? One quick one. which end would they start construction in? Has that been determined? Is it going to be the Sterling end? Is it going to be the Soldotna end?
Has not yet been determined. Thanks for the question.
Thank you,
Thanks.
and see you tomorrow night. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. Next agenda item is Assembly and Legislative Reports, and I see no one from the Assembly or the Legislature here, nor do I see any hands raised on Zoom. Next one, public hearing, ordinance 2024-035, accepting grant funds from the Byrne Discretionary Grants Program and increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $110,000 in the miscellaneous capital projects fund for the Soldotna Police Department Urgent Casualty Care Project, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I would move to enact ordinance 2024-035.
May I have a second, please? Thank you, Mr. Carey. Report from the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Soldotna Police Department has been awarded $110,000 through the CDS congressionally directed spending from Senator Murkowski. She supported this request. And as you say, the purpose is for urgent casualty care equipment, and this ordinance appropriates the funds that were awarded in the amount of $110,000.
Thank you. Are there any members from the public who would like to speak on this item, which is ordinance 2024-035? Seeing no one here in the audience, I will look at Zoom, and there are no hands raised there. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? No call for the roll.
Parker,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Kincaid.
Yes.
You have 4 yes votes.
Ordinance 2024-035 passes on a 4-0 vote. Moving on to unfinished business, postponed items, ordinance 2024-032, amending Soldotna Municipal Code, section 17.10.370, mobile home parks, and section 17.10.335, landscaping to increase the notice period for tenants, add water and sewer service standards, and provide consistency on buffer landscaping requirements for mobile home parks. Introduced by Councilmember Chilson, and the motion to enact is on the floor from the September 11th meeting. And I guess I'll ask Mr. Chilson for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we continuing this with an additional public hearing tonight, or is this already back to council? We're going to just discuss and make our vote at this point in time, potentially.
Well, I'm going to have a public hearing on it.
Okay, so to that end, I don't really have anything else to report on with what this does. I spoke I spoke to this ordinance in depth at its original introduction on September 11th, and then more on October 9th. So I think the intent of this ordinance and what it's going to be accomplished has been spoken to with a lot of detail already. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council has when it circles back after public hearing.
All right. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item, which is ordinance 2024-032? Is anyone here in the audience wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom, and there are no hands raised there. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Mr. Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have before you tonight a substitute ordinance, and I'll speak briefly to that. So the intent of the substitute ordinance is to not change what this ordinance would be accomplishing, but just how it does it. So in working with staff, they were able to identify a couple areas where the way this code is written would produce potential redundancies with Chapter 17. So this is proposing an alternate way to do that specific to water and sewer services, where we'd be adding new corresponding sections in SMC 1310 and 1318. Just basically, this is more of a clean way of doing this.
Okay. Well, need a motion.
So to that end, I would make a motion to substitute the ordinance on the floor right now with substitute ordinance 2024-032.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Any other discussion on the substitute?
I don't have any additional discussion for council on that.
Any comments from anyone on the council? Just as a reminder, with two absence, we need a 4-0 unanimous decision on this. So we'll call for the vote on the motion to substitute.
Chilson,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Kincaid.
Yes.
You have 4 yes votes.
Substitute has been approved. So next is the final approval on the substitute.
Um,
Mr. Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd say that this has been a long time work in progress. I think this is going to be very valuable to our community. There's a lot that this is doing. And again, I feel like I've covered this pretty well in depth at the September 11th hearing and again at October 9th. But I would just ask if any council members are at all confused or have any clarifying requests for this, I'd be happy to discuss at this point in time. Otherwise, I'd be happy just to vote on this and get it done.
Any questions or comments from council? Saying none, we'll call for the motion or for the vote on the substitute ordinance 2024-032.
Nelson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Kincaid.
Yes.
You have 4 yes votes.
Ordinance 2024-03, the substitute has passed on a 4-0 vote. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. We have nothing under new business. It was all under the consent agenda. So the next item is the mayor and council reports. I will read the proclamation that I have here. As soon as I can find the right one. Whereas the United States is a beacon of hope, freedom, and opportunity to people around the world, and whereas the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who fight to defend our liberty embody courage, patriotism, and loyalty, and whereas throughout our nation's history, our military men and women have boldly answered the call of duty to defend our nation's independence and precious liberties, risking life and limb for their fellow Americans, and whereas Americans have remained at the vanguard in defending freedoms around the world, and our service members, veterans, and their families continue to spearhead this noble undertaking. And whereas American military men and women and their families are vital to the security and prosperity of our nation, we have a responsibility to protect and serve those who have made countless sacrifices for love of our country. As President Lincoln once said, honor to the soldier and sailor everywhere who bravely bears his country's cause. Honor also the citizen who cares for his brother in the field and serves as best he can the same cause. And whereas we recognize the integral role our military family members play in supporting our armed forces and contributing to the mission while our men and women are serving at home or overseas, it is our duty to provide their families with the resources they need to thrive in our communities. And whereas each warrior who fights for our nation, along with their families, has earned our eternal gratitude. I ask the citizens of Soldotna to thank and support those brave heroes and their families. Now, therefore, I, Paul Whitney, Mayor of the City of Soldotna, do hereby proclaim November 2024 as Veteran and Military Families Month in the City of Soldotna and honor and express deep appreciation for those brave men and women and their families. I encourage everyone to acknowledge and honor the service, sacrifices, and contributions of veterans and military families for what they have done and for what they do every day to support our great nation. Dated the 23rd day of October. Other items that I have here are, and we had the report from Ms. Queen on the Sterling corridor, and that was very well done. Very thankful for that. Hopefully, I'll be around to see its completion, though it's getting a little down the road there. So, Salteshi Trails. Vice Mayor Parker and myself attended the grand opening and dedication of the maintenance facility for Salteshi Trails, the new maintenance building. And at that time, we received the City of Soldotna thank you from the Salteshi Trails for all the city has done for that project and for that event. Though I didn't mention to them that unless I flunk spelling, it's Californsky and not Califonski Nordic. So I will pass this on to our city manager. Now, that's all I have on my report. Next one on is council reports on boards and commissions, October 21st, 2024, Library Advisory Board meeting. Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As always, library board, their meetings are very positive and I enjoy greatly. One of the things that they mentioned, an activity they had to basically promote that members of the community would come in and they'd go through the different areas. It was a game to play to see the different services that are provided by the library. So that was a very creative way to get more people in, and I enjoyed that. We, at the meeting, there were one primary structure protocols that were rewritten, and it dealt with restricting use of the library to individuals basically from a one-day restriction to something that could be a longer period of time. The previous language was not very detailed. It certainly mentioned that if there was inappropriate behavior or language, there could be restrictions, but it left it relatively vague. And so that the language that was approved was, again, I think much more detailed, much more easily enforced and easily understood. There have been very few times in the last 10 years under the current library director that this has been needed at all. Maybe a total of 3 or 4 in terms of anything more than just a few days when there was an issue. So I want to make it very clear, our library is wonderful on so many different levels. It is greatly used. It's back up, as we heard in terms of the numbers in dealing with some economics, the library usage is back up to the pre-COVID time periods as well. And that is particularly noteworthy because there are so many different uses now for a library. For an old timer like myself, I think of a library as a place where you go in to get books. That's just a very small component of what a library is about now, the services, the learning services that are provided from the library. And so that, again, to continue to grow in the number of people who actually come in is very significant because there are so many other ways, again, obviously through cyber structures to get access and to use the library. There is a remodeling, and it was interesting. One of the library board members says, "What remodeling? We just rebuilt it." And then they talked to, well, that was 10 years ago. And so again, a little bit of remodeling there in the front to provide more usage to the public and to other groups. So again, it was a very good meeting. As always, there was one person who came to speak about issues in terms of types of books. But again, overall, it was a very good meeting.
Any questions for Mr. Curry? I do have one. When are they going to get the fireplace fixed?
I couldn't tell you, and that was not discussed.
Okay. I go into the library for books, and I think in the last 2
understand.
weeks, I think I've picked up about 20 books out of there from the for sale shelves there. Good books. Okay, moving on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of items not in the written part of my report. Regarding the audit, it is currently audit season for the city, and things are going very, very well. Those who get interviewed have been interviewed. And the auditors will issue the audit by December 31st, and a report to council will be in January. So look forward to that coming to you. I'll check into the fireplace, Mr. Mayor. And also, I do want to say something about the library. On election day, we're calling it Library Light Services because we do anticipate a large turnout. And so you can check out books, but the other services will not be available just for that day to accommodate voting. I would encourage, and as Stephanie did as well, the public and council to attend the open house. I feel confident in the team, the QAP team, Dowell, Stephanie's team, receiving feedback and regarding what Soldotna wants, the area wants, I should say. I think it's really important that we speak up as this area and speak to what we want. And with the hope and desire that the state of Alaska receives what we want, they'll take our input as well. So that, I believe, is all I have.
Any questions for the city manager? Saying none, we'll move on to the next agenda item is public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item? Anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on any item? Saying none, we'll take a look at Zoom, and there are no hands raised there. Next item, council comments, and we'll start out with Ms. Kincaid.
Hi, one second. So what's going on at SoHi? So this week we had, well, this last Wednesday, we had new members of our National Honor Society inducted, which was pretty exciting. As for sports, our volleyball is continuing. They're going to a tournament this weekend. Football is going to their state championship this weekend at Colony High School, which we're all excited for. And both wrestling and our drama, debate, and forensics team are also starting and being in full swing. Other things going on at SoHi that you guys might want to be interested in. This Halloween on next Thursday, the choir is doing their fundraiser, which is Haunted Hallways, which is kind of like a haunted little thing that they do, but I've never been, but I'm planning to go this Thursday, and it sounds fun. On November 16th, they're doing their What Women Want market at SoHi. And on November 23rd, there we have our arts and crafts fair that we'll be hosting at SoHi too.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson,
No comments tonight.
Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to comment on one of the aspects of the written report from the city manager. And that was the input from all of the different departments in terms of what they're doing, their staffing, if there are any vacancies. I found that to be a very helpful and a very precise and concise document. And I'd say, particularly for the public, if they have questions about what is going on in the city, that is, I think, a very helpful document to see all the work that's being done. It takes a lot of people to keep a city running as well as we run. And again, that document shows the number of people and the efforts that are being made. And I'm very open that often the people who are doing a lot of the work, because they're not seen in the front, they're not here at these meetings, they maybe don't get thanked by the public as much as they might otherwise. And so I certainly want to extend my appreciation to the people that work for the city and the work that they do. And as we particularly get ready for winter and what that entails, I know these people are prepared and will be doing a great deal of work to keep movement in the city going and the services that the businesses provide functioning. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Parker.
No additional comments tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Chilson.
No comments.
Moving on to the next agenda item. No need for an executive session. Meeting announcements. November 6th, 2024, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, 5:30 p.m. November 7th, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting, 5:30 p.m. And November 20th, City Council regular meeting at 6 p.m.